Today, we are diving into something that's been on my mind for a while, just critical thinking and humility, and what it means to seek the truth even when it's uncomfortable. I'm bringing this up because I came across a clip recently from Piers Morgan where he talks about how he regrets how harsh and how critical he was during the COVID era. I think 5 years later, it's time to talk about it. So, hear me out. It's just a thought.
In COVID, I got I think, overly emotionally engaged because I knew people who were dying of COVID, and it was awful. And in Britain, we handled it very badly. But I got led down a line which I wished I hadn't been led down. I'll give an example. When the scientists said, if you have the vaccine, you can't transmit the virus, I believed them. And I became wrongly censorious, really badly censorious. I was saying to people, if you don't have it now, knowing that if you have it, you can't transmit the virus, you're going to go and kill old people, you're going to kill people. It's not about you, it's about the people you may infect and kill. And it turned out to be completely wrong. They later said, months and months later, actually, there's no difference whether you have the vaccine or not in terms of transmitting the virus. And at that point, I realized I've been misled.
Now, from the clip that we were looking at, the conversation covered way more topics that are not for this channel, but if you are interested to pursue it, it was entirely interesting. Piers Morgan admits in this situation that he acted out of certainty at the time, but later realized much of the information that he stood on was wrong. And honestly, how many of us can relate to that? Times when we thought we were standing on solid ground only to realize that we were way, way off. And I do commend him for going back to reflect on that time, to correct the record, to say out loud that he was wrong. And I believe he made the best decision he could at that moment. But I think from just listening to this clip, I'm sure Piers Morgan burned some bridges with people that he was severe with. Maybe he gaslit some people because he is the host of a very popular show. He has a big following and he has influence in the world. So anytime people questioned the experts, quote unquote experts, in the last few years, they were severely attacked. And so now going back and realizing that the information he had back then was wrong may have been very difficult on him. But again, I commend him for just correcting all of this. But here's the thing, like I said, we've all been there. Maybe not on live television, but in our own ways. We have said things that we believed, were true. We have taken hard stances. We have maybe even hurt people in our lives because of information that we thought was true. And so the question is sometimes, I guess, let me rephrase. The question that I'm asking today is, what do we do after the dust settles? It is 5 years now. 2020 was a crazy year for everyone. 2020 was a confusing year for everyone, and lives were in danger, and bonds were tested, jobs were lost, a lot went on. But now that the dust has settled, what is it that we make of it? And that's what I want to think about. So just to set the stage here, I want to talk about Proverbs 4:7 that reminds us of the importance of wisdom, right? The beginning of wisdom is that though it costs all that we have to get some understanding. Wisdom is not about rushing to be the loudest voice or having the hottest take, but it's about seeking understanding and staying grounded even when everyone around us is caught up in the moment. And I know that if we go read pardon me, if we go read Proverbs 4:7 together, I will take a moment to bring up the passage because I know I paraphrased it, but I wanted to make sure that I am reading it correctly. Let's do the NLT translation. So, getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do, and whatever else you do, develop good judgment. Again, getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do, and whatever else you do, develop good judgment. So, the Bible has always taught us the importance of wisdom, the importance of understanding, and it also points us on where understanding and wisdom comes from. And spoiler alert, it comes from above. I've always on this channel mentioned how much I love the book of Proverbs. It is my favorite book. If you have book of the Bible, pardon. If you have missed my episode about Proverbs, go back, find it. I think everyone should read the book of Proverbs, but I digress. Now, there's also the way to go about things. Proverbs 18:13 teaches us that to answer before listening is folly and is shame. We're going to bring that up so we can read it the right way. Again, I always be paraphrasing things. Proverbs 18 verse 13, let's again use, do I use the NLT? Yeah, let's use the NLT translation. So Proverbs 18:13 teaches us that spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. Why do I bring up these two verses, these two passages of the Bible? Because how often do we speak first, act first, and think later? Or worse, how often do we cling to a narrative just because it feels comfortable, even when deep down we sense it might not be true, or we sense that we have incomplete information? Like I said on this channel in previous videos, critical thinking is about pausing, listening, testing things out, and above all, just seeking truth, even when that truth can be humbling. I can recall myself in the past, in my teenage years, I would say, when I stopped really putting God as someone of importance in my life, when I completely stopped believing anything Christianity taught because it felt comfortable for me to not worry about doing good or being good. It felt better for me to just listen to my flesh and party and be lazy and watch movies and not worry about a single thing. I can recall having discussions with people that were religious, specifically Christian, and looking at them like they were the least intelligent people ever, and just thinking, you're always thinking about religion, you're always mentioning God, you're always bringing God into the picture. Because I looked at them as, I was so critical of them, as Piers said in his conversation with Tucker. I was so very critical of these people because I thought I had all of the facts, and I could have, right? I was young. I had to learn and mature, but I could have just learned to disagree. But in place of that, I was highly critical of their position. And I remember, fast forward in 2020, I had some opinions about the exactitude or the veracity of the information that was readily available, very, very fast to us, where I question, has this been tested? Is this really true? And I remember when I would have these conversations with my group of friends or family, I would receive some very, very harsh criticism. Thankfully, thank God, and literally thank God, by then I had learned to accept criticism, accept hard judgment, accept people just not embracing patience and truth and just not getting heated. Thank God. Literally, that's not me, that's him. But I remember looking into their eyes and seeing the passion with which they were saying exactly what Piers was saying. And fast forward, when they learned this information was incorrect, when they learned that they had been misled by the scientific community, and this is not the topic of the day, things happen, whatever, they got really uncomfortable instead of learning the lesson from it. So what I want us to all do on this channel is to vow, whenever things are uncertain, whenever we have incomplete information, or whenever we have not researched something, to stop dividing ourselves, to stop burning bridges, to stop breaking off relationships off of opinions, to stop adding oil to the fire, and pause to seek truth and wisdom first. It is our human nature to want certainty. I'm using this COVID example because it's the perfect example in recent memory for all of us. But there's so many more applications of this message that I want to push today. It's human nature to want certainty, especially in uncertain times. And during COVID, fear was real for most of us. The unknown was terrifying, but again, certainty without the humility and without wisdom can be dangerous. We become closed off to the possibility that we might be wrong. We stop listening. We become critical of anyone who dares to see things differently from us. And sometimes in our pursuit of being right, we forget to be kind. And that's why the Bible teaches us this can be folly, guys. This can be shameful. And so here's the good news, though. It is never too late to make things right. The beauty of humility, and this is why I find this moment with Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson so beautiful. The beauty of humility and repentance is that they open the door to healing. Let's read James together. In chapter 5, verse 16, I'm looking for the part where he talks about talking to one another and just confessing our faults. So I think let me bring it up. James 5:16, and let's read. Yeah, I'll do New International again. It reads, "Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective," meaning we can realize that we have faulted. We can realize that we have sinned against other people, against ourselves. We can come to the realization and mature and confess our faults to one another and then pray for one another. So there's healing, pardon me, there's healing in admitting I was wrong. There's healing in reaching out to those we may have hurt and saying I am sorry. And there's incredible strength in just owning our mistakes and choosing to grow from them. Piers Morgan is a bigger person looking back now and saying I was wrong on national television than if he was to realize that he was wrong and just keep it quiet and move
really, the question is not who was wrong. The question is who admits it.
Yes.
on. He is a better person and he is a healed person, and I'm sure he has probably taken the time to acknowledge all of this with the people that are concerned. The last step was on television, but I'm sure the people that he was harsh with appreciate that, because we're all imperfect. We all need to grow. We all need to mature, but we also need grace from each other, just like we have received grace. If you have ever received grace, it is good to remember that and extend it to other people. So again, where do we go from here? I think the key is I've learned that we all have to learn from the past without being stuck in the past. If you did get caught up in the fear, in the debates, in the heated conversations, it's okay. I will also note that the most recent elections were another example of just families divided, a country divided, nations divided with very heated opinions. I did make an episode in the last few months about people just shutting a family because of political opinions, which in my humble opinion is the worst idea ever. But we all did something like that to some extent in the past. What matters now is that we commit to thinking more critically, to being slower to speak, and quicker to listen, and to always be grounded in love and in truth. What is the actual verse about being slow to anger and being able to listen? Let me look this up. It's like in James 2. I think in James chapter, is it the first one? Yeah, let's do James in the first chapter. La 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 la. The whole first chapter of James, I think, I will read it again tonight actually, but let's all read it together when we have a moment later on. But today, let's just read verse, I'm so sorry to make you wait. I want to make sure. Verse 19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. There's so much here to talk about, but just let's focus on the part that is relevant for today's episode, which is everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The point being that we might find out later that we were wrong. And if we have given into the anger, given into the passion, given into the primary emotions that arise in these times, we may make the mistake of burning bridges and maybe even hurting people around us in some kind of way. So, like I said, if you got caught up in the fear, that's fine. What matters now is that we can commit to thinking more critically. If you're committed to doing that, stick around, subscribe, because this is an exercise that can take years. I am so excited to embark on this journey. So if you want to do it with me, stick around. But like I said, let's commit to being more let's commit to thinking more critically, to being slower to speak, quicker to listen, and to be grounded in love, grounded in truth. And if there is any relationship that we need to repair, if there's anybody that we need to apologize to, maybe this is our sign to reach out. Maybe this is your sign that you were waiting on to reach out. It could be about COVID or not. It could be about elections or politics. It could be about something that happened in family, at work, something that you look back and you were like, I lashed out for absolutely no reason. And if you were the recipient of somebody's wrath or somebody's harsh opinions, somebody's criticism, where now you realize they were wrong, I was right, but they still spoke to me, in a crazy way, you can decide to pray for that person so that they can see the truth. You can decide to forgive that person. As I mentioned, forgiveness is not really for them, it's for ourselves. So you can extend that grace. You can remember how many times you have faulted and sinned, and you were forgiven and loved, and your sins were paid for. But I digress. So if there are any beliefs that you held onto that you now realize were not true, give yourself also grace and move forward with the lessons that you have learned. And remember that God's goodness, God's mercies are new every morning, and there's always an opportunity to start fresh. So that's the message I wanted to extend today. Of course, like I said, the whole conversation was highly interesting, but I thought we could take this snippet and use it to remind ourselves of what happened 5 years ago, and what kind of crazy things did we witness, or what kind of crazy things did we do. So I want to hear from you. How did you experience your COVID era? Have you had moments where you realize you were wrong about something big, whether about this topic or something else? Do you be honest with me? Be real with me. Can you think of somebody you owe an apology for? Let's just say in the last 5 years. And if so, send them this with a nice message that said, I messed up, I'm sorry, I'm bigger and better now. And how are you handling everything right now? So drop a comment or share your story. This space is always about growth and wisdom, and also moving forward together. So I will see you next time.